everybody, and welcome to The Greater Truth of a Woman. This is episode 12, and today I have the lovely Eileen O'Haran. So Eileen grew up during the Troubles, okay? Eileen is actually in a book called The Brighter Side of the Troubles, which is a brighter way to look at the Troubles and the things that are going on. And the people in Northern Ireland, the way we have a thing about looking on the brighter side, okay? So Eileen had quite a really nice childhood up until I think the age of 13 or 14, and then things turned quite changed quite rapidly. But I'm going to let Eileen share this part of the story. So Eileen, welcome to The Greater Truth of a Woman. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome.
Thanks. Well, I had a wonderful childhood. There was mum and dad, and there was my sister, my brother, and myself.
Yeah.
And we really didn't. We had the wonderful life because we had the trees and the fields, and everything was beside us, and the parks, and where most kids maybe didn't have then. You know what I mean? And my daddy, he had a car park down in High Street.
Yeah.
And because he had that car park, all the shops that he parked their cars.
Yeah.
They gave him sweets, they gave him fruit, they get all the
so you
things.
really you had you grew up in a nice place from what you remember. Had a lovely childhood. So there's two stories in this collaborative book that actually involves yourself, Eileen. Yeah. So tell us a wee bit about leading up to that.
Yeah, well, what happened was when the Troubles had first started, then my mother was attacked. She was attacked, and she had her two arms ripped open. So she had. Every
time you have said that to me, it shakes me, because it's an awful thing for any child to hear or witness. And what age were you when this happened?
I was about 12 going on 13. I was. And it was just a terrible time, and all the neighbours were out, and all the people in the ambulances, and it was just awful. And from that, then our life just went downhill. That happened to her, and then a year later we were put out of our home, which we all loved. We loved it. So we were put out of our home then, and we had to come down to a place. We just had to be taken to another place to live.
Yeah.
And we were a mixed family. My mother was a Catholic and my father was a Protestant.
Yeah.
But we were rare Catholics. But we had to come down to another place to live. And it wasn't very good. We were only there a year. I had just turned 14. And I had went to a christening in the church on the road. I came out of the church, crossed the road, and there was a wee shop on the corner, and it was called Maggie Keenan's shop. So I went in. I thought I'll go in and get a magazine. So I went in to get the magazine, and of course Maggie was chatting away. She walked me out to the door, and as I got out the door, and she just walked out behind me as she was still chatting. And the next thing I didn't hear a bang, but I felt a sharp pain in my leg. I looked down at my leg, and the blood was splurting out. And Maggie behind me, the bullet had shot her as well. The one bullet shot the two of us.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it went into my leg, came out of my leg, went into Maggie's thigh, and out of her thigh, and into the wall.
Oh my goodness.
So the next thing was, I was lying on the ground, and I was sort of trying to look around me, and I saw a guy across the street, and he ran over to me. He got down beside me, and he put his hands up my skirt.
Yeah.
Well, when he put his hands up my skirt, I started beating the head of him. And I says, "What do you think you're doing? I'm getting my daft for you. What are you doing?" And he was trying to scream to me, "I'm trying to help.
Yeah.
And I went, get away. And at that, my daddy came then. But seemingly,
response.
which seemingly was, he was trying to get my tights off. for to wrap it round my leg for to stop the blood.
Yeah.
You see, well, that wasn't the end of it. The next thing was we got into the ambulance. So we're in the ambulance and Maggie's shouting, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Bingo's on the night. I want to go to bingo the night. And the ambulance member saying, you can't go to bingo, you're shot. I don't care, put a bandage on that and I'll be all right. She wanted to go to bingo. I nursed me crying. But then when we got into the hospital, you know the way when you're in the hospital and you can't wait to get home, and you're a young girl and you can't wait to get back home again. So every day the doctor was coming round and Maggie was shouting to me, hey you, before he comes, you tell him you're no better now, because I'm laying in this bed and I'm getting my breakfast, dinner and supper, and I'm getting everything done for me. Don't you dare to tell him.
She was happy being pampered.
She says, don't you dare tell him we're getting better, she says. And I had to keep my mouth shut. We were in that hospital for near 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
So as Maggie could get fed. Oh my God.
What age were you again? Sorry.
I was 14.
14. So 14, what hospital were you in?
We're in the Royal.
You were in the Royal. So man in the Royal at the age of 14, just being shot. I mean, my son's 14 now, I can't imagine. But just what you're saying about how people just get on with it at times. I mean, I had another person on who was running to the shop to get mascara, and nothing would do till she get this mascara while there's a bomb going on, you know. So it shows that people it became normal to them in Northern Ireland. Yeah.
It was.
And I obviously didn't grow up in that era, but I love
hearing the stories.
And reading this wee book, because it is, and not in a sick way, but there is so many funny stories on it.
Yeah, there are.
So then, when you left the hospital, what happened then?
So then I went back home again, and things getting back to normal, what could be normal, because there was still the shootings and the bombings and everything else was going on. So what could be so normal?
Yeah.
We just tried to get back, and then I met my husband then.
Okay.
So I did. So I met him anyway, and I was only maybe near 17 when I got married.
Wow.
So he was the first boy that I met. So anyway, that was that.
Love story.
And we settled down, got a wee house, settled down. Beside my mummy, had Jason, that was my oldest son.
Yeah.
Had Jason, and Jason was 2 then. I was pregnant again. And I had to get started with Jason, so I was hoping to God I didn't have to get started with this wee one.
Yeah.
So I said, when I go into labour, I'll walk about. So it was Grant National Day, and they were all down the stairs, and they were all watching the horses and blah 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 blah. So I just walked about up the stairs, down the stairs, round the corner, just kept walking about anyway.
Yeah.
So about 20 to 8 that night, I thought, I think I have to go now to the hospital.
So were you in labour?
I got that whole time.
You were holding your pain in.
That whole time.
Just for the men.
And they were shouting, come on, listen, come on, Nat, come on. They got there and there's me. Oh, dying. So anyway, about 20 to 8, my mama and my husband and myself headed down to the Mater Hospital, because that's where I was going in.
Yeah.
So we got to the door and they brought me in. They sat down in reception, brought me up the stairs to the labour ward, and laid me on the bed and whatever. But at one stage I saw a doctor looking over to the other nurse, and he said, get Dr. such and such and Dr. whatever. So the next thing, 3 doctors came in, and then one of the doctors said, I'm going to put you asleep now, Eileen, we need to put you asleep. And I says, right, okay. So that was okay. So the next thing I remember was, I don't know whether they had to do this as policy or what, but they woke me up. She said to me, Eileen, and I woke up, she says, it's 11 o'clock. She says, and I'm just waking you up to tell you, we're sorry your baby died.
Oh my goodness.
And then they just put me straight back to sleep again.
So
yeah, because I was badly injured. I was, they had to cut their way in to get the baby and all that, and there was all complications, and they told me later then I was lucky that I lived.
Wow.
The two didn't die.
Yeah.
Because it was poison. So it was, yeah. So I was in the hospital and they had me, I could hear everything, but I couldn't open my two eyes.
Yeah.
Right? So that was on the Saturday. On the Monday, Monday night, I could hear a bomb went off. I heard the bomb.
Yeah.
And I could hear all the people saying, oh, there's a bomb, and I don't think that bomb's too far away, and things like that.
Yeah.
But the time went on, and a girl came running in to the ward, ICU, and she said, there's a guy, and he's lying over on the other side of the hospital, and the blood's running out of him. It's terrible, you want to see him. And his wife's in here.
Oh my goodness.
And she said back to her, what do you call his wife? And she said my name.
Oh my goodness. So, I mean, you're lying in the Mater Hospital, you've literally just lost your baby, you're recovering from, and there's bombs going outside. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine. I mean, the impact that kind of trauma would have had on a young woman.
Yeah.
So it's quite a story, Eileen. So, I mean, how did you even cope hearing that, at that time?
And I could hear myself, but I couldn't open my eyes screaming. I could hear myself screaming and screaming. And then the nurses all ran in and they must have given me something just to knock me completely out. And the next morning, at 12 o'clock, they came to my bedside, and there's two big doctors, and said, Eileen, try to open your eyes. And I opened my eyes and said, listen, your husband was in a bomb, as you know. We tried all night to save his eye, but there was too much damage. It was just ripped to shreds. He says, so he's lost his eye.
Oh wow. So at that point, when you heard that, not that second hand, obviously, second hand, third hand, you didn't even know if he was alive.
No. And you know what I said? I said back, is he alive? And they said yes, and I thought, well, that's fine. I says, as long as he's alive, that's what matters.
Yeah.
Know what I mean?
Yeah.
Didn't matter if he had one arm, one leg, one eye, didn't matter. I says, well, as long as he's alive.
Yeah.
Now, it took me a long time in the hospital before they would let me out. I was in that hospital for going on to 4 weeks with no baby.
Aww.
And hearing all these babies crying.
Oh my goodness.
I had no baby. And I left that hospital with a wee bag with my clothes in it. And I left that hospital, and I came out of that hospital, and I walked across the street to the other hospital. Because one was facing the other one.
Yeah.
So I walked across the street to the other hospital, and then it was just, for you forget about that baby. This is what you have to do now.
You had to look after
because it was all not just myself, it was all family and all. Oh, Martin, he's lost his eye and blah blah, and and I thought, right, you just have to get on with it.
Yeah, and for a woman recovering from that as well. Not to take away from what your husband had went through, but I mean, any of our viewers that has lost a baby, or anybody that watches this, the amount of pain that will cause alone.
Yeah. And a wee girl, and I really wanted a wee girl. Because I had the wee boy, you know what I mean? I thought, and we all thought sure, and, things were all, happy.
And did you have, you're 67?
Yes.
So I know years ago they didn't bury babies properly and things like that. So did you have a wee funeral for her?
Well, I'm going to tell you now. I remember a girl had her baby died, and it was buried in a shoebox. It's a nice shoebox. They're a white shoebox that the hospital give you.
Yeah.
And when Martin came to see me on the... No, I'm a liar. When he came... Yes, on the Sunday. He came on the Sunday, and I kept on saying, all I could say, I kept on saying, please, please, buy a coffin. Please, please, buy a coffin. I can remember myself saying that, all I kept saying. But I was in there, intensive care. Martin was in the other hospital, intensive care. So none of us could do anything. Yeah. So what happened was, now this might be hard to believe, but it's true. To this day, right, I don't know where she's buried.
Oh.
And I don't want to know.
No. Yeah.
Because as far as I'm concerned, she is in heaven, and it doesn't matter where in the ground she is.
Exactly.
And for 20 odd years, I couldn't even talk about it.
Yeah.
So when I didn't find out in them 20 odd years, I don't want to know now.
Yeah, I know. I can understand.
You know, I just, I know she's in the cemetery somewhere with all the other wee babies and all that. But people now that lost babies are so lucky. They get a wee fingerprint maybe. They get a wee footprint.
Yeah.
They get so much now, and they're able to bury their own child. They're able to take their child. They're able to take it home.
Yeah.
They're able to bury it.
Yeah.
They're able to get a service. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't. People are so lucky now.
It was a different way of
It was
life.
a different way of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take it away from how hard it is for anybody, but anybody that has experienced this will know, you know, that it's not an easy process.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a loss.
No.
That,
You know, and I'm going to tell you the truth. When I came home, I forgot about her. In my mind, I blocked her.
You suppressed
I did.
it.
I blocked it, and the whole family, my sister, my mommy, everyone knew not to mention that baby to me.
Oh.
And years on, I remember having an argument one time with my oldest son.
Yeah.
And he said, sure, look what you done, you never even told us about Nicola. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I suppose he was right, but he didn't know the reason why.
Yeah.
Till you have a child, till you lost a child, you know what I mean? You'll
You
never
don't know
know.
the difference.
No. And as I say, people just spoke to me, but they always knew never to bring that up.
Yeah.
Never to bring that time up in my life, because it was going. And then I went, 25 years later, I went to a bereavement meeting up in the chapel.
Yeah.
And after that, funny, I became a bereavement officer.
Right.
Yeah. And I done that there bereavement, and that's how I came out of myself. But I'll tell you a funny story. My first job as a bereavement officer, right? So me and my friend, we were bereavement. We thought we were great. We were bereavement officers. So we went to this man's house. We rapped the door, and the wee man opened the door, and he come on in. And we says, oh, we're from the chapel, we're the bereavement counsellors, and we come from the chapel and all, and we're just here to see how you're keeping and how you're doing.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, sit down. So we sat down. So the next thing he says, it was a sad time, he says, because it was Christmas time. And he says, she was laying on the settee, he says, and I went in, I was going to make her a wee cup of tea. See when he came out, I was in floods. Oh, Jesus! He says, I'll get you a drink, love. He had to help me. He had to help me through it. But after that, I was all right now.
Yeah.
It was just, that was our first night, you know, on the visits. But it was funny, like, when we talked about it afterwards, like, you know, and told that priest up in the chapel, they were all stitches. So they were.
But that's what that kind of thing is, like, you know what I mean? It's like coming together and people talking and sharing and being able to cry, you know what I mean? Because you went through such a ordeal, and you know, you told me like earlier that 25 years you couldn't talk about this, you couldn't talk about the stuff that happened before, and you know, for you to be here now and telling me this story and telling our viewers and being live as well at the same time, you should be very proud of yourself.
Oh well, you get there. You never think you are going to get there, but you do get there.
Yeah. So you work with Cause, don't you? You've worked with Cause for quite some time.
I go to Cause. I'm a member of Cause.
Yeah.
And Cause is for mental health.
Yeah.
My son, my Nicholas, he had mental health problems.
Yeah.
Through drugs. I'm not going to lie. Through drugs, my Nicky. And you wouldn't believe me when I tell you, he was the quietest thing that ever walked the earth. He was so quiet, but got caught up in drugs. And the drugs just... He came to me one day and told me that close all the blinds and lock all the doors, and the cameras were everywhere watching him, and I panicked. And for anybody with mental health, they probably know this. So I got into the car and straight down to the Mater Hospital, and I ran up and I said to the woman behind the desk, I says, can you help me, please help me. My son, there's something wrong with him, he's not right. So she said, you'll just have to sit in the queue like everybody else. So I thought, no, I won't. I got into the car and straight over to the Royal Hospital. And I have to say, we were only in the hospital 10 minutes when the call was through, 10 minutes. And it was so sad because I was sitting down and Nicky was standing up. And he was telling, the doctor says, Nicky, tell me what way you feel and what way you are. So he started telling the doctor these things, and I'm going to the doctor. Oh, you know, this isn't, no.
Yeah.
And he turned around to me and he says to me, Mommy, I'm telling the truth here. I really am. And I went, oh, sorry, son. But obviously he wasn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he, they wanted to bring him into Knockbracken, and he had a dog who he idolised, was like his partner. And he said, no, please help me, I'll do whatever you say, but please don't let me leave my dog. So the lady said, right, Nicholas, I'm going to give you tablets now, and I want you to continue on these, and then I'll get back to you in a week and tell me if you feel any better. But anyway, Nicky took his tablets every day and just went on with his wee life.
Yeah.
It wasn't a great life because he sat on it just on the computer every single day, or else he went his messages. Back home again, round to his daddies who made his dinner, back home again, and that was the life he had. But this dog he treasured.
Oh.
I tell you, he could talk to that dog and that dog could talk back to him. I'm not only joking. But anyway, the dog died and it nearly killed him.
Oh.
It nearly killed him, honest to God. It was so awful. But, do you see, a month after that, you're not going to believe this. A month after that, Nicky took a cold sore on his lip. And he said to me, Mommy, I can't get rid of that cold sore. So I bought him everything, you know, all the tubes and all the things that you get. So he said, Mommy, this isn't going away. And you know what? I'm getting pains down here.
Yeah.
I said, right, I phoned the doctor. You could see a doctor then. Bring him straight down. Once we got down and the doctor looked at him, she says, that's cancer. As soon as she looked at him, she said, that's cancer.
Oh my goodness.
So, gave us an appointment to go to the Royal. When by the time we had got to the Royal, it had travelled. It had travelled to his neck, all his glands in his neck. So he went into the hospital, had his whole head opened, the whole neck to neck opened, and all these taken out. So that was that. So then we had to go back, and when we went back, it hadn't worked. It had travelled to his lungs, down here, you know, round about here, his lungs and that. And chemo. So he had 2 years, nearly 2 years of chemo, which was a long time.
Wow, that's a lot.
They said it was a long time, but I think it was to keep him alive.
Yeah.
I believe it was to keep him alive because every time it grew, the chemo was shrinking it.
Wow.
That's what I believe.
Yeah.
So she said, we're going to have to stop because he's had it too long.
Yeah.
So about a year and a half later then, trying to think of what he done. About a year and a half later, yeah, I was in Donegal. And every time I come home, I saw him on Friday, before I left, asked him did he need anything, was he all right, back up again, and on Monday morning. I phoned him on Monday morning and I says, Nicky, how are you? And he says, I'm all, but he never said he wasn't well. He says, I'm all right, Mummy, but I was sick yesterday. And I said, well, if you were sick yesterday, why did you not phone me?
Yeah.
And I would have come up. He says, no, I told my daddy, but my daddy said, are you sure you're all right? And he said, yeah, it went away.
Yeah.
So that was at 12 o'clock on Monday, right? About 3:20, I got a phone call, and it was from my niece. And she said, Eileen, you better come down. My uncle Martin has found Nicky and he's not moving. So I flew. I didn't want to go, so I can't go, no, I'm not going, I can't, no. But anyway, I got down, and when I got in, he was just sitting on the chair like he was sleeping.
Oh my God.
Just sitting on the chair like he was sleeping.
Oh.
Yeah. And my daughter had got in, and she had tried to, give him that thing that brings you around, and she knew he was dead.
Yeah.
And so I used to say to God all the time, God, see if you're taking my Nicky, will you give him a heart attack? Something that's not, you know what I mean? Something that he's not. See where you
Suffering.
see people lying and the suffer and the suffer. Oh,
yeah.
I don't think he could have done that.
Oh.
I don't. But see when the men came in, the ambulance men, they said, God, this boy might have had a heart attack, but he didn't. It was part of the cancer, had travelled right up to his brain, and he was dead in a couple of seconds.
Oh. So Eileen, you have been through the troubles and lost two children.
Yeah.
And
people may say about me, I cry in my own time.
Yeah.
I have my own time, because once I sit down, I start to talk. I start to talk to him.
Yeah.
Then it's me and him.
Yeah.
It's me and him, and I'm talking to him. But people don't see me crying.
Oh.
Because I don't. It's just me and him.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think people might say, oh, she lost her son, look, she's not crying and she's not great or whatever. But see my Nicky, he's in a better place.
Yeah.
I know he's in a better place now, because let alone the cancer, mentally he wasn't happy.
He was struggling mentally.
He was, and I often thought, what if anything happens to me?
Who would look after him?
Because it was me. See, no matter where he had to go or what, it was me, mommy.
Yeah.
He wouldn't. See, if I had said to him, Nicky, I have to do something, would you let your daddy go over to Old Sea House with you? He would have said, so I would have changed it.
Yes.
I would have changed it for me to go with him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I had to go everywhere with him. Everywhere. But I believe Nicky is in a better place now.
Yes.
And if I thought for a minute he was with my mummy and daddy, who he idolised,
I'm sure he is.
I would be so happy. And do you know what? That's the thing that keeps me going, keeps me thinking, no, you know, Nicky's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's the other ones you worry about now, Nicky's okay now.
But you have, I know are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You show me great strength, and you're saying, people say to you about being great strength, as you're saying, you on your own time, you would cry or whatever, but you've suppressed a lot of it.
Yeah.
So you have.
Yeah.
And what do you feel cause has done for you through counselling?
I'll tell you. You see, I was sitting in the city hospital one day waiting on Nicky coming out, and I looked up on the wall and I seen this sign for cause. And I thought, I'm going to read that, and it says, have you got some of my mental health? Are you suffering? And I thought, God, So I took the number off the wall, and the next thing I did, I phoned, and it was a girl called Angela who was an angel. That's who she is to people. She was an angel. I'm not joking. So she met me and bought me lovely coffee and everything, and said, come to the meeting. It was a meeting. And I thought, well, them people are there, blah, 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 go.
Yeah.
But anyway, I went to that meeting, and see that meeting, it was so uplifting. People talking about their daughters, and people that their mental health family had killed themselves, and people who were trying to help them. It was all to do with the mental health, and it just came right to me. You know what I mean? I thought, oh my God.
Yeah, you found your place.
And when I was looking after Nicky and I was going there, so they would have took you out for dinner, they would have took you to the theatre, they would have took you to places that I wouldn't have probably even went.
Yeah.
Only you're going, send me the invitation, go. And you know, Nicky's dead, and I still go to cause.
That's good though.
I still go to cause, because we're all the same and we're all one, and there are other people there whose daughters have killed themselves, and you know, things like that.
Yeah.
Another place for me was Wave, where the book's
came from.
Now, Wave is run by Alan McBride.
Yeah.
And other people. There also, I mean, I had got great comfort from there, because when you go in there and you go to places, and as I've said to you, you tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I found it really hard to tell my story in Wave, you know, because people were there and listening and watching. And I found the first time was really hard, and I couldn't get the words out for crying, you know. But you see, once I got the story out, I felt great, and all these people were telling about how the troubles impacted them, and how it impacted their children, and how, and it was brilliant.
Yeah,
it really was. And for people that go to Wave, they're lovely people, and they're from all communities,
which is wonderful.
Which is good.
Yes,
both sides telling their stories together.
Yes.
Together, you know.
Yes, which is, that's the thing about the troubles that people that don't live in this country don't understand. You know, there was quite a traumatic time. Yeah. So there was, and I mean, you yourself, I mean, you lived in a mixed area, and you were taken out of a mixed area because of the actual troubles itself. So, you know, it's now that Belfast has changed, you know what I mean, it's really, really evolved, and it's become more for tourism. So it's really good that both sides of the community are.
And there was nothing like that. In the days of injuries and shootings, there was nowhere to go. There was nothing to go, nowhere to go to. But now people can mend by going to these places. You know what I mean?
And healing. And you've said yourself, you know, healing out loud. Another girl who was on the podcast, Lisa, who had a lot of trauma involving her father. She had said the same thing. She had only ever told about 10 people in her life. Obviously her counsellors, and she basically and she says that she got so much. Not everybody can heal out loud, but she got so much benefit from healing out loud.
That's me.
Because she felt that talking up, speaking up was not only helping her heal, but also maybe triggering somebody else in to counsel them or to speak to somebody.
Definitely, and I tell my story no matter where I go and to whoever I meet, because I think to myself, maybe they're suffering, and I have helped a lot of people in the cause situation. My friends and that saying, go to cause, it'll help you. And you know, or go to Wave, it's a great place. You know, and telling them what they've done for me, and you know, I have helped them that way by telling my story. You know. And
I'm sure you sitting, or people, anybody watching this, or you know, will think the same, and hopefully think the same. And just want to say, if there's anybody watching with mental health, cause, and or if you need to speak to somebody soon, Samaritans is another good one. But yes, it's good that there is that in Northern Ireland, and I'm sure you've made plenty of friends out of it.
I've made loads of friends, so I have,
Uh-huh.
and it's just wonderful. It is a wonderful place. I'd just like to say about thinking I was over. I don't want to leave him out because it's my son.
Yeah.
In 2002, my oldest son was coming home from work one night, and he was shot 3 times.
Oh, so I'd say 2 children. You've actually lost 3.
Yeah. No, he didn't die.
Oh,
Sorry.
he didn't die?
No, two are dead. Yes,
Yes.
Jason was injured. He was shot 3 times, coming home from work.
Oh my God.
And I thought, is this what? I thought it was over. I thought all my troubles
troubles
that way
were-
was over.
Yes.
You know, because it was coming up to the ceasefire and things like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, my family they'll all be okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But he's alive, and he's not great health, but he's alive anyway. And I just wanted to mention him in case he thought I left him out.
So you in total you had 5 children.
5. Yes. Yeah.
Aw. And you've grandchildren as well.
I have. Yeah. I have.
And what do they think about you coming on to share your story?
Oh, they can't wait, and they see all my grandchildren. They all, it's, Granny, will you do this? Granny, will you go here? I have a big grandson, and he's 20. I think he's 23, and I have to take him to his appointments in the hospitals.
Yeah.
I have to take him here. I have to take him there in Russia. I have to take her everywhere, and she calls me the greatest granny on the thing, you know, on the Facebook, and underneath the greatest granny. So they're all great. And I never got round to tell you the story about Martin.
Yes.
I'll tell you a funny story. I have to tell you this.
Because we'll read
have
wee
to.
paragraphs from the book at the end. But go, yes. So like when you were.
So anyway, Martin got out of hospital, and the kids went on, and life went on anyway. And then we had Nicky, and Nicky was about 5 or 6, and he hated school. He hated school all his whole life because he was ginger, and they all called him Ginger. So he hated school anyway, and he huffed and puffed going in the mornings, you know.
Yeah.
And Martin was always saying, I'll go to that old teacher and all, what's she doing, you son and all, I'll do this and that. But anyway, I'm sitting in the house one day, and the door got rapped. And I opened the door, and it was the man over the school. So I said to him, oh, is he not well, is he sick? But when I looked out to the car, there was a teacher in the car, and she didn't look right. And I thought, God, what's wrong? So he put his hand in his pocket, and he took a hanky out, and he opened it up, and he said to me, would this be yours or your husband's? It was Martin's eye. Now, you see, he had an eye which was in, and he had an eye in the side cupboard, you know, in case anything happened to that one. He said, well, the teacher was going around the class today, and she checking the homeworks, and she got to Nicky's, and she opened up the book, and there was the eye sitting, and he turned around her and says, my daddy says that's to keep an eye on you.
I know when I read it, I laughed. I really
My
laughed.
God.
Because when I had come home, and just want to say as well, Eileen had invited me to her home and made me very, very welcome, and I came away in tears and in laughter as well. So I did, but I let my friend read it, and she was like, it's really, it's funny. Yeah.
And I never thought of it before as a funny side of the Troubles.
Yeah.
I never thought of that before as a funny side of the Troubles, you know, even with myself and that fella. I never thought, you know.
But it just shows you the innocence. What age was your son at the time?
6, he was about 6.
Stand there with the eye.
And he said the poor teacher went into convulsions. She went into convulsions. She's seen the eye, because it was a real eye, like, you know.
Yeah.
Poor teacher. How she got over it.
Oh. Do you want to read your wee stories? Because they are your stories. Would you prefer
no,
me to
you read them.
Me read them?
Yeah.
Right, so we're 35, isn't it? I'll have to put glasses on for this. No. Is it 35? Hang on.
38 maybe.
I don't know, hang on. Thought I had it marked down. 38, maybe you're maybe right.
Maybe try.
I thought it was 35. Legs 11.
That's me.
That's
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Legs 11.
That's, yeah.
So, legs 11. As I look back on my life over the past odd 60 years, I naturally remember many things that touched my life. Up until I was 13 in 1968, just before the Troubles started and touched all our lives, I remember my childhood being one of joy and laughter. Life was good. I am aware now that we lived in a mixed area back then, but at the young age, religion wasn't something that was of any interest to me. I had friends who went to different schools, but out of the school we were just friends. That's all we were interested in. But one day that year, my 13-year-old innocent childhood changed. I was out playing with my friends, but when I came home, I realised the front door and inside the door of the house were both wide open. I went in expecting to see my mum, but I couldn't find her. I then looked out the back and there was my mum lying on the ground with blood pouring from cuts all over her arms. Apparently 2 men had entered the house and attacked her and suggested we move house. Despite needing literally hundreds of stitches to the wounds on both her arms, we didn't move out of our house or the area. I continued to enjoy playing with my friends. But after a few years later, our family were persuaded to move out of our house and out of the area. I say persuaded, but the fact that they were persuaded at gunpoint was very persuasive. So here I was, almost 15 and living in another house in a different area, no longer enjoying the great friendships I had made during those previous years. That's when the Troubles touched my life personally, and I mean touched my life personally. I was coming out of the corner shop and just across from our house, and beside me was an older lady who was talking away to me as we both left the shop. And suddenly I heard this almighty bang and felt as if someone had kicked me, and the lady instantly stopped in her tracks. What both of us didn't realise in that instance was that the shot had been fired, and I didn't know who fired the shot or why or where from, and I have no idea who the intended target was, if any. But the bullet had entered the calf of my leg and went right through my leg. It then somehow travelled up and into the lady's left thigh and out the other side of her thigh before hitting the wall behind her. In the chaos that quickly followed, I was aware of a young guy who was doing his best to get his hands up my skirt, and I was doing my best to stop this pervert. I think I managed to smack him quite a few times as I told him I would get my mum and sort him out. My dad also arrived on the scene, and I even told him that this guy was trying to get his hands up my skirt. The guy had been across the road when we were shot, and he immediately ran across to help us. When he saw the blood pouring out of my leg, he had the idea of getting my tights off to use as a tourniquet to stop the bleeding. The ambulance arrived very quickly and started preparing both myself and the older lady to be taken to the hospital for emergency treatment. But the lady kept protesting, saying she wasn't going anywhere in the ambulance. She said she was going to the bingo later, and it was the big bonus that night with the top prize that week, so there was no way she was going to miss out on that. Unfortunately, the bingo lady didn't get her full house that night, as we were both transported by the laughing ambulance crew at the hospital. She even made me laugh during our sirens blasting ambulance journey when I saw that to her getting to the bingo was more important than being shot. We both received marvellous medical treatment for our wounds and put in adjoining beds in the same ward. She kept up the tradition about missing the bingo and the big money prize, but eventually settled herself when she realised we were being kept in for a few days. But the third day she leaned across and told me that when the consultant did his rounds, I was to say I was still feeling unwell and she would do the same. I was curious and asked why she was so content to stay in hospital now after not wanting to be taken there when we were first shot, and she whispered, "I'm getting 3 meals a day in here. My house is being cleaned for me, so I'm staying here." I burst out laughing and she said, I'm warning you, make sure you put on a good act for the consultant. I did a great acting job during the consultant's ward round and convinced myself and him I was not fit to go home just yet. Of course, the bingo lady giving me her best daggers, looking as I was warning helpful me my perfect story. She was even better actress than me, so it worked, and the bingo lady got a few more days of free meals and a bed rest, and I learned all about the garden gate number 8. Knock at the door number 4 and legs 11 that seemed appropriate considering we had both been shot in our legs. The troubles were a traumatic time, and it isn't easy to find any brighter side of those dark days, but a good Samaritan fumbling up my skirt and being called a pervert for his efforts and no doubt helping save my life, and the bingo lady who managed to put her priorities into perspective, still making me laugh out loud. Eileen, that is, there's so many sides to that story when you read that. There really is. Let me even read that. I was laughing. So it really is. How does it make you feel listening to that?
It brings it back for me.
Does it?
It brings it back to me. It does. It brings it back.
I'm gonna read your ex-husband's, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he's 75, isn't he? From what I remember. Right. So I'm watching you. Right. So I'm watching you. This is not much a story about kindness and compassion, but anything that can make us laugh about the troubles is okay in my world. It was in the late 1970s, and our son Nicky was just about 6 at the time. On that day, both my wife and I were sitting at home when we saw the car stop outside our house. I quickly went out of the car when I saw that the other driver was the headmaster of Nicky's school, and I was convinced that something might have happened to Nicky. As I drew closer to the car, I could also see in the back seat was Nicky's class teacher, and she looked not just concerned but unwell, which made me even more apprehensive. The headmaster reassured me that Nicky was okay, but said that Nicky's teacher had been going round the desk checking homework books. He then said when she started to open Nicky's homework book, she found this. The headmaster opened his hand and there was a crumbled piece of paper. He said that Nicky's teacher was extremely shocked when she saw what was in the piece of paper. An eyeball staring up at her, he said, opening the paper and showing me what Nicky's class teacher had found. He said that when the teacher asked Nicky why he had it, Nicky replied, I had told him it was to keep an eye on her. I explained I had lost my eye in a bomb explosion in a number of years earlier and had been fitted with a very realistic glass eye. I explained to them that I often didn't wear it and I found it uncomfortable and usually kept it in a box in the lounge cabinet. I was really embarrassed and apologised for my sense of humour that had upset his teacher and explained I had jokingly said it was to keep an eye on him, but not Nicky, in his innocence, got it mixed up, thinking I meant his teacher. I'm sure that young teacher must have had a shock for her life, but I must confess I had to try hard not to laugh when I was asking them to both at the car that day as the headmaster handed me the eye. It isn't often we can laugh about the troubles, but me innocently losing my eye in a bomb explosion and the innocence of childhood is one of the troubled memories that still makes me laugh. It is very, it's some story that it really is.
Yeah.
Can this wee book be purchased?
No, but did I give you that book?
You did. You gave me this one.
You can keep that book.
Yeah. It's just because it's lovely. It is. I got so much. I laughed like reading some of the stories. I really.
Did you want another one?
No.
Sure.
It was just in case anybody wanted.
They get it. If anybody wants it, they can get it in. They can get it in there in Wave.
Oh right, okay. So
if they go to Wave.
If you were contact Wave, then you can purchase. You can get it from Wave.
Yeah. Because it's actually going down south now.
Oh right.
It's being brought down south.
So the book. The book. Oh, yeah. That's really good. It is. Yeah. It's really, really. So how long ago was that wrote?
I think that was only maybe last year, was it? I think it was maybe only last year.
Don't think it says.
Yeah. He'd been writing it for years, but it only was published last year.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's funny that you had contacted me because I haven't even said to you, but I'm actually going to be in a collaborative book next think our release date is April, so I'm in the middle of writing my chapter at the minute.
Right.
Yeah, so, and all our donations are going to Women's Aid, so they are. So it's about a lot of women. It's called Breakthroughs, so it's about
different stories,
and about breaking through the trauma that we've come through and becoming the strong women that people see, and how we actually help people as well. So
that's good now.
So it's lovely to see one, especially a wee funny one as well.
I know.
It really is.
I can't believe it. Like at times, you know that it's there.
It's there. Yeah. It's a wee memory for you.
It is.
It really is.
It is.
Well, Eileen, I really, really want to thank you for coming on. You have been brilliant. You've nearly reduced me to tears. You've made me laugh. And you got me to read. I hate reading out loud. Do you know what I mean? I hate reading out loud. Believe it or not, I'm actually dyslexic. So that's a big thing for me.
Yeah.
So it is. So, but yes, I did it. But yes, I want to also say, if anybody wants to watch the Greater Truth of the Woman episodes, I have a new website coming out this week, and it's shecantransformations.co.uk. All 11 episodes so far are being released. For anybody on TikTok at the minute, we're obviously live, but this will actually go on to YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant.
And you can look my personal training services as well up there, and all the other services that I provide. But yes, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
No, not at all. It's been lovely having you, and it's been lovely meeting you. And as I said earlier, thanks for welcoming me into your home. And it's been, you've been a great guest.
Oh, thank you.
You really, really have. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
And well done, Sharon.
Thank you.